your mics.
Okay.
Somebody has got their mic on and they're listening to a phone. Can I start now?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Please listen very carefully.
Yes, sir.
Sorry for starting late and because of the technology and the other things. I don't know why it was failing. Muruguana ere introduction to Linux.
Takuona
Yes, sir.
foundation.
All right. Thank you so much.
Aswana
Thank you so much.
asiri kuona.
Are we together now?
Yeah.
Course outline. Are you listening that one?
Yes.
Siri kubuda
Yes.
in operating system history of Linux.
Yes.
Please, guys, okay. Right.
You can see that.
Please disable your mics. You speak only when I want you to speak. Is that okay for to everybody?
Say
Yes,
it's
sir.
Okay. The course outline is as follows. We are going to look at Linux from this perspective of an operating system and look at its history and then the reason why it has got some very excellent and very clear advantages over the normal operating systems like Microsoft Windows and others. We look at the distributions, we look at the distributions, we look at Linux file system, the shell, and you guys might be enjoying that exercise. Starting with the operating system. Please, if you've got a question, you can enable your mic and launch that question, but please try to be reasonable and interject when it is reasonable to do so. Especially before you move the slide to another slide, you can ask a question about the previous slide. Is that clear?
Yes, it's
Yeah,
clear.
okay. The operating system consists of applications and what is known as the kernel. And with it is the hardware. The hardware consisting of the CPU, memory, and devices, as we enunciated in our model in our very first lecture. Remember, we had at the top there were the user and the application, the operating system, here represented by the kernel, and the hardware here represented by CPU, memory, and devices. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Timeline. Linux was started by a loner called Linux Torvalds. This young man was given something to do, and this was back in 1971 or 1970. And then the other gurus like Andrew Tannenbaum and others joined in around 1987. And this became a very good vehicle for introducing a very interesting operating system. It was, sorry, I think I got the timeline very wrong. And I wanted to say, you can trace it back to Colonel Thompson and Dennis Ritchie back when they were doing the Unix as the core of Linux. Linux is made from Unix. So, and then when you came to 1984, we had 3 Software Foundation, which sort of started what is general, this is GNU, which was the General License Project, which was started back in 1984. Then this young man, Linus Torvalds, went in there as he was supposed to do a small project back in 1991. And he actually started a very good operating system, but he used Linux, and he had Unix to compare to. So you look at Linux today, it is a Unix look-alike system, which looks much like Unix. If you knew Linux back then, you would just say, this sounds familiar. So Linux is a child of Unix. It is a derivative of Unix. It was derived from Unix. And now we can actually say, you can safely say there is no project or machine under the sun that will not be having Linux or will not be able to run Linux of some kind. And there are different species of it. And it has grown up. In 2000, there are so many distributors, there are so many contributors, the major ones being universities, because the feature is, if you look at how this young man wrote the original Linux using, he was actually a student at university. He was supposed to do a project, and he had a 386 machine to do that, and he had Linux, and he had Unix as the operating system. But then he actually developed another child, and that's what we expect university students to do with time. You know, from what is there, develop or improve on what is there, and then come up with new interesting features of the same. You can say that it is a derivative of Unix, but it says here not derived from Unix source code, but deliberately Unix compatible. It is compatible to Linux, to Unix, but it is a different operating system. That's why it can be sold and be developed separately. Here is the very important slide for us, and this, we are looking at the benefits of Linux. Benefits of Linux are usually or largely because it is free. You don't pay a dime for Linux. You get it for free, you use it for free, you can even develop your own Unix system, Linux from another Linux product, and then, you know, come up with a new thing. I'm thinking that Zimbabweans, by now we should have come up probably with our own Jangata or some other new kind of thing that is going to be very good in showing our input into Unix. So it's free and it can be done freely. People can easily do it. That's a large, by far the largest advantage that we have for Linux, because anybody can just use it. But another very good advantage of Linux itself is that it is secure, very secure. It doesn't have these virus attacks like you get in Windows system.
Sorry, sir, are you recording this lecture, sir, so that you can send us the video?
You can record it your own thing, can't you?
Say that.
Se network ya ma1 hapana chatiri kunzwa.
Hapana chamuri kunzwa, iri kukata.
Iri kukata network.
Network. Disable video, disable audio, you should be able to hear.
Mozo ntraga video ndinaro ndiri kurekodha.
Record, Anil.
Muzotsvaga inini.
Thank you so much. I like students like you. They normally don't fail the course.
You're welcome, sir.
You guys must know how to record things.
You're welcome.
Yeah, please, you send me, have you started recording long back?
Yeah, kubva bekutanga tanga.
Thank you so much. What's the name?
The virus.
Now, what's your name? You're not the virus.
Alright, I'm
Tinashe, don't say you are the virus.
Tinashe.
Okay, Tinashe, please continue recording. So, the second very important feature of Linux, which is important for us as academics, is that it is very secure. It can largely be said to be very, very, very secure. And of course, there are features that we administrators have to screw in and tighten for hackers not to get into the system. But I can tell you, I've been administrator for years, and each semester I do a simple installation. Nobody has been able to hack into my system, despite the legion of these programmers and hackers that we train each year. But nobody has been able to get into my system. And I can safely tell you that if you want a secure system, please go for Linux. It is the best. Are we together?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then the third.
Yes.
The third.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. The third very important advantage of Linux is that it is distributed by so many people and developers, and you get a lot of these problems and quasi minor mishaps that can happen to an operating system addressed quickly. Universities, researchers out there, companies, these companies with a lot of resources, like NGOs, they get in there and then they find solutions to common problems that you might find. As an advantage, you then are made to believe that if you go out and get a product of Linux, it should be the best or very good one. And it guarantees that people are being looked after by developers who will always follow up on problems and solve them. The fourth one is that it runs on a wide range of hardware and installed alongside pre-existing systems, like what we have in computer science. For those who have been to the lab, we are having an operating system called Windows and Linux coexisting on the same equipment. And then you boot either Linux or you boot Windows. Of course, you cannot be putting both of them at the same time. So you boot either Windows or you boot Linux. You then can operate so independently as if you are on a different machine altogether. I am so happy with these Linux things, and I hope you guys I managed to generate some interest in you as far as Linux is concerned. The fifth one, it supports central software installation from pre-existing repositories. We can centralize installation of Linux or the running of software, and then we run them in the server, and the other system they can easily just tap on and go ahead and use the resource. And the advantage of that is that the standard is good. You can standardize software, you can standardize the updating, you can standardize the dealing with problems as far as that software is concerned. And the most important one for you guys, I know it's not very important, but for me, from a hardware point of view, that Linux, it requires very, very low resources to run. with Windows, you always get, it cannot finish because there's no enough space. It cannot finish because this, like, clock or, you know, the CPU is not of the good quality. What you can happen with Linux is you can tailor make it for a lower resourced machine and also make sure that you can take advantage of a higher resourced machine and then still operate yourself comfortably. I am happy with this. Guys, this slide is crucial. Can I ask if there is any problem or question as far as this advantage of Linux is concerned? Is there a problem or a question? Can I proceed?
Yes. Yes. Go on, sir.
Thank you so much. I'm moving to the next slide now.
Yes, sir.
Now I'm talking about the free. Sorry? Can I proceed?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now we're talking about the free and the openness of the operating system. You realize that Linux is distributed under open source licenses, which means it's known as, or generally known as, the GPL, GNU public license. And these are a host of licenses of software that was developed by the public that you cannot be seen to be selling to the public or to anybody out there. So you are allowed to package it and just use it as it is. But of course, please, you acknowledge the public license domain under which you are using it. And you can actually use, these are the total, the environment that you can see it under. The MIT, I've forgotten what the MIT stands for, but I'll check that, guys. Next time, please ask me. And then the Apache environment. All these are software that are very popular and they are distributed or can be found there, in the domain, in the public for you to use. Free, says free as in free speech or free lunch. Free.
Guys, mana record there, network iri kujamba.
Yeah, of course, so I can't address, I'm not the president, I'm not the country. We will always have this problem. And, because of COVID, I cannot do it otherwise. Otherwise, we will be gathered in one place and it will be against the rules and we will not be able to have this lecture. Sorry, Chama. So it will be free to run, free to start, to adapt, free to reach, to distribute, and free to improve. So which means if you are an academic, you want to be able to run, study it, and then adapt for anything that you want. Or if you want, I can develop something that I can distribute to you guys as my students or as my audience. And then I can improve on it if I want, and then distribute you guys freely. I cannot afford to sell. Is that clear?
Yes.
Can I proceed?
Yes.
Good. All right, let me go to the next one. Yeah. Then we are going to talk a bit about the distributions. Strictly speaking, Linux refers only to the operating system kernel. When we say Linux, we are referring only to the kernel. We are not referring to the distributions. You will find that there are so many distributions out there, but the core of it is Linux. That's why you call it Linux. Can be downloaded from the internet free of charge and assembled into working system, but it's hard work, which means sometimes, especially with the network problems, you can actually burn it into a device like a DVD. Please mute pieces of you can burn it into a local device like CD-ROM, DVDs, and things like that. Even a USB, you can actually localize it and then install it. It's actually found in most cases as a localized entity, which means you can actually install it from a DVD, CD, and USB. Most users purchase a pre-built distribution. I can tell you that at the University of Zimbabwe, we always download the best one, keep it around. If you want, you can get a new one. But of course, when you want the latest, you have to go on the internet, download it, and then burn it into a CD or DVD, and then go ahead and use it. Vendors add value through installation and configuration tools and support agreements for enterprises. Please, you will find that there will be lots of variants of the same product because of these vendors. What they do is they add on what they want, how they want you to install, and when they're installing, for example, my popular one, the Red Hat one, it will have their logo as you install. Don't say I'm installing Red Hat, you are installing Linux. Red Hat is the distribution that is popular. For a long time it was the most stable, but over the years others joined in. Red Hat is responsible for Fedora as well. It's also responsible for CentOS. Red Hat products are these ones here. You can actually then see a Red Hat product which is not neither Fedora nor CentOS, but they will say these are Red Hat Enterprise. For that one, you might be paying a bit. There it says, developed for business market, which have a paid license. You actually can pay for Red Hat Linux if you get it as an enterprise edition. However, if you want it for free, go for Red Hat in Fedora or Red Hat in CentOS. I am very happy with Red Hat, and I'm so happy to be using on my server CentOS, because over the years Fedora has failed, well, for me, so I've moved on to CentOS, just because it's a child of Red Hat, and Red Hat and Fedora, Red Hat is responsible for developing Fedora and CentOS. There's also what is called Oracle Linux, built from this Red Hat enterprise sources option for Oracle database application. So this one is tailor-made mainly for the Oracle database environment. It's not as popular, but it is popular among those who are dealing with Oracle Linux. We are interested in database applications. And then you will realize that there is also another called clear. I don't even used much.
Say,
Can I? Yes,
I have a question on the last slide.
yes.
What do you mean by red hat based distros? What does it mean?
When we say Red Hat based distribution, Red Hat is the developer of is the main distributor. But when they develop them, they can give them names. So they name one product Fedora, another product they name CentOS. Are we together?
Yeah, thank you.
It's just the Red Hat is the main distributor, but it then gives this product that it makes names such that you can identify them if you want to install or to deal with a problem. Say, for example, you've bought a Fedora that you installed. You can know that a Fedora is a product of Red Hat, and the main distributors are Red Hat. It's supported by Red Hat. Is that clear, ma'am?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So we normally mention the main distributor and say Red Hat product.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Another very interesting, when I was doing my master's, I used this one. We used Debian as the thing, and that was actually what is, sorry, are you seeing this one here? Right at the bottom.
Yes.
Yes.
Are you seeing it? Are you seeing
Yes.
it? Good. That's the Debian that I used. It's a lightweight version of Linux, which you can compress onto small and needing less storage devices like your Raspberry Pis, your developer computers, where you want to have, for example, Internet of Things. You have things communicating, processing and communicating with low-level devices like sensors, things like that. And the Red Hat at this level, the Linux at this level is called low capacity, or rather lightweight version, which means it stores or uses very little resources and can be compressed into a very limited memory zone. And then when I was doing my research, I was making two sensors communicate. I had my Linux program running on that environment, and then displaying it or running it on those small devices. Like I will actually bring one to the lab some of these times and demonstrate it to the size. It's a very small thing that you can condense your Raspberry Pi, or your version of the Raspberry into it. And it's a Debian product. And it's actually a Debian product it's developed from this one, but it was condensed and it is given another name. And you can see here, it says it's got this, and that is sharing that as well. Another product which you guys will be familiar with by now is Ubuntu product. It is very common and it has been used in most cases that I know of. It's a South African product, they say, or was developed using a South African kind Ubuntu, Abantu Ubuntu, Wunu, and then this is now developed, I think, internationally. It's no longer like a South African thing, but it's now done internationally, and it's been done successfully. Another product that you guys will see in computers is the Mint product. The Mint product is a very small one in a way, but it's able to work inside another operating system. Like, for example, you can have Mint running on top of Microsoft machine, and then you integrate the two. But of course, a good Mint might also require you to install it independently, like the normal Linux products you can. Another very popular name is the Kali Linux. You can actually see this in penetration testing and hacking distribution that is meant for digital forensics and reverse engineering. If you want to spy on the product that they are producing, you can actually find that Kali Linux is very good and it's used mainly in such environment. So then you can also have Android. Android is another common product, which is Linux kernel by Google. And you can also have SUSE. SUSE I've used a few times. And there's Arch Linux. It's very popular actually in experienced developers environment. You can see Linux in many forms and nature, and you can actually have another one as what is known as Slack Linux, advanced distribution aimed for technical inclined users. Please don't go there if you are very new to the Linux environment. So we use Slack when it is very necessary to do so. If you look, one about this distribution is they've got a lot of what can you say? A lot of honor to protect. If you have a product and it's not doing well, they want to address those problems. And usually if you Google, you might find one or two people having experienced what you are going through, and you get your solution easily without necessarily writing to the distributors. Can I ask a question? We are almost halfway through the lecture. Can I ask a question? Are we understanding?
Ndizvo.
Ndizvo zvichaonekwa patest. Chazoona patest here tete. Well, what's wrong?
Roy, I'm testing it.
No, what will happen is next week we'll be doing my examples, Linux. You guys are disadvantaged because you are doing these things in absentia. When we're in the lab, we do things and demonstrate to you, and they will be more interesting. But now,
Yeah, true, sir.
you guys are out there, and some of you, I'm sure, you are sleeping or texting. You are not 100% with me there. I know some of you are even tweeting your whatever without necessarily concentrating on the lecture. If we're in the lab, I would demand that people listen to me, and I would demand that you be participating the time we're talking. But it's very unfortunate that in this environment of COVID, we cannot even meet. Sorry guys, I have to proceed. Can I proceed?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yeah, sir. Pane maslide here ngemanotsa network hapana chatiri kunzwa.
Maslide atoriko ipapa pamaloga ini papa patori ne software yacho. You get them. Sorry ma'am.
Tachiti ko mukati tiri kutadza kumadownload haringoti unongoona ungori online saka mukati sendera kana pa LMS.
I sent them long back. The very first lessons I sent this together with one word, PowerPoint, Chamartete. You are not interested in school. If I had sent your boyfriend his account number, you could have responded long back.
Yes.
But now it's about school. You appear like,
Yes.
you know, I have to send with a bus or some money.
Oh my god. Look how you are wearing.
Nobody
did pay this?
who hasn't got these notes?
I want.
We see these notes right at 5, the beginning of the lecture.
Did pay this?
Sorry, ma'am. Which class are you in?
Data say. Look in.
Data.
She chickened out. I want to tell you that I sent this the very first day to all the reps that came into the city. If you came to the computer science lab and we organized this, we were very thorough. We gave you all the information. Don't even start that. Is that okay, guys? Let me proceed with the shell.
The shell is the
This is a command interpreter. What it does is, because we are going to talk directly to the shell, we must be able to interpret somehow all the command, and the interpreter is the shell that operates in command processing mode, which means it requires us to read command line and be able to solicit for very important products.
loops, big and prompts.
Commands that we need to interpret into exact instruction for the kernel. So the shell is used to communicate directly with the thing, and we play a prompt and read each line, each command on a line format, which means we do the first command, then the next one, so on and so on. And performs various substitution and expansion on the command line, and executes the resulting command and waits for it to finish. So we finish one, so we start one and complete it before we do the next one, so on and so forth. And we can then look back and prompt for another command. So we can have the shells written in Unix. Remember, we said Unix is the senior of Linux. You would have these ones that are common. The most common one is the born again one. The born again shell, or known as the bash, is or you can want to install one. I would have wanted you to be in the lab so that we look at a standard Ubuntu environment and then do our experiment on that environment. Unfortunately, COVID-19 won't allow that. But I will still insist that you guys get to do a practical example on the born again shell,
the bone shell, which is the SCH, CLC shell, and things like that. You guys, please, I want you to have a look at this. And next week we'll look at them. Now we can also have we can also have other shells that are really not stated here. But of course, we will
also, you can actually go ahead and read about that. Well, let's look at simple commands that you guys should look able to run next time you are given a machine. Please, let's promise I will demonstrate how to log in, how to give a password next week. Don't miss next week's lecture. It's so crucial. We are going to do some demonstrations. So if you look at the first thing there, this is an preceding mark. What that one does is it shows you what level you are at. If there is an ampersand there, then you are a super user. But this $sign means we are not the super user. We are just a general, simple user. And we're going to log in both next week and be able to tell the difference. We can say, what is the name of this machine? And then how do we do that? We say host name. And this host name is the name that we have given to the machine, or the name that the machine is known as in the network. And this machine is known as Snow White. Snow White is the name that we have given this machine when we were installing. I also teach this to system administrators, and we always name our machines when we install them, so that we're able to tell which server it is, where it is. Now, there are other features that we can do, or other commands, like date. What date does is it will give you a deposit or a listing of what the date is. This was done on a Friday, August 23, 11:48 at that time, and this was in 2019. I will be doing another time in real time next week for you guys to know. The other command that we will look at is the ID. ID being what is the ID of the current user who is logged in. We will also go through that. It is very important for you to know and do these things. As I said, I'm teaching people so that they pass. And I'm wanting you guys to shine out there in the Linux platform. You realize the other things are too common. The Word, PowerPoint, most students have done those. But I think for most of you guys, the telling part is whether you know your Linux or you don't. That's what determines either you get distinction, 2-1, or nothing. So we need to be aware of such kind of commands. The other command is adding a command like date, but with a switch like -I. And that removes certain things or changes the format in which the output is going to be given. So for you to get the ISO format, you say date space -I. That goes to the option and then chooses the option that the ISO format follows, and then gives you the date in that format. We can also state the date with 2 minuses, and then the ISO, and then some number there, which means specifying the ISO that we're using. And then we'll get a particular format that we want. Otherwise, you realize that the ISO, this whole statement is the same as the I. So these are called options that follow a command. We are going to be doing a lot of those next week for you guys to really follow. The other one that I will do next week as well is your ls -l. And you notice that minus L here is, the command is ls. The command is ls, but the switch is minus L. Then there is a target. This target is, we are doing an ls, which means, what does ls do? Ls is a way of just saying list the thing, more like your dir in DOS, where you're saying, please give me a list of the files or directories in this directory, current directory that I'm logged in. But if you don't want to list the current directory, you can put a target. What has happened there, the ls minus L plus the target, which is /home, has gone to home and done what is required. What is required? Give me a list of all the directories and the files in that subdirectory, which is /home. And then we go a list. We're going to look at the differences next week when we get around doing it. The other very common command that you look and find in Linux environment is the history command. If you just say history, you get a history of all the commands that we've done. But if you say history 10, history plus a number, then you show the last 10 commands. If you do an history minus C, it will delete the last command. So it will delete the whole, it will clear the command history, and then you won't have anything there. I will look at some of these very interesting things next week, and I want you to be aware of, if Linux is going to be asked, these are very common questions to ask. Previous commands can be selected and re-executed by using this. So you can actually say re-execute command 85, which means if there's a listing of history, so on, up to 85, you can say re-execute the command 85, and then it will be executed. You can also say exclamation mark plus string, which will, most recent command that begin with string. If you want to say, I don't know what else I was putting, but it started with string something. So you can actually say string, exclamation mark, and string. Then it will call that into the rerun. If you want the last one, you can do 2 exclamation marks. The up and down in the history can actually move the history through and backward and forth. These ones I need to be demonstrating live in the thing. I will actually, guys, solicit for some video material that can demonstrate some of these things, because it's very difficult to teach these things from a theoretical point of view. They are very practical. I've never seen a Linux exam in which people are asked theoretically. They are all practical. You are given a machine, install. You are given a product, go create, reformat, delete, give me, go to a subdirectory. You cannot afford to be theorizing at this level. So I really don't know how I will be asked to do this without a practical session. We need a practical session, and we're going to try to do one next week, but it's still very theoretical because you guys, I'm sure you'll be seated there. Some of you are saying, yeah, the bandwidth is bad. Others are saying, yeah, my boyfriend wants me there. It's totally immaterial. Really, I wanted you to be logged into the computer room and really doing useful stuff, rather than you guys twinkling your eyes there and doing nothing. This is a practical session and it requires practical doing. So I don't know how we can really possibly do it without practical sessions. I will insist that you guys do practical sessions. The other commands that you can look at is the ls with a target. You can also have a cat. Cat is a command, and you can have a target for that cat. And these are the environment. I am very, very unhappy with producing a theoretical Linux. It's not a theoretical subject, and it will never be. It's a practical subject. But however, because of the constraint, I cannot cry foul and sit down. I will have to soldier on and assume that people will listen to me and do something. And then before you write the exam,
I think
please go through a practical exercise, log in, do a few commands, see how they are doing, and see the differences between the switching and the targeting of a command. I will insist that people do that. The other feature about Linux is that you can do what is known as, you do have what is known as a Linux tree. Tree.
The tree anchored. The root being the anchor
for the tree.
The
the disadvantage
Yes,
here, you are very far from the farm. Linux is very interesting, but you guys, sorry, you are put away there because of the COVID. And I think the other issue is that you guys are too many. I can't fit you into the lab. But the issue is this must be demonstrated really in a lab rather than just talk about it. Otherwise,
Sure.
it doesn't make sense really to me. You even follow what is happening. But what do we say? Let's do the best under the circumstances. I'm very, very much disadvantaged. You know, if you go to the linguistic department, they're probably doing very well. They can still communicate and write. But me, I need people to go into a different shell and in a different command line and doing different things, and then I explain what is happening. But now I'm very disadvantaged, and I'm very sorry for you guys that you are learning under this COVID environment where there is no like face-to-face interaction. I hope you are not sleeping, guys, aren't it?
No, we're not.
Yeah, because it's difficult, don't sleep.
Jose,
Yes.
our assessments and tests, is it going to be practical or theoretical?
I want it to be practical. But we didn't do a practical session. So it's very difficult. But you can expect one thing. The questions are very practical.
Okay.
The questions will be asking you on practical things. So you need to have seen a Linux environment, done a few commands, and understand how things work. Then you can actually go through the test much easily. Don't expect a miracle. You cannot do well if you don't know the practical.
So are we going to do the practical before my exams?
I will insist that you guys, before you do the exam, find 5 hours, 3 hours into the labs and do a few practical commands, understand how things work, and then when you walk into the theoretical exam, which is going to ask you on practical things, you are in a better position to answer and justify things. But if you don't, I'm afraid you will not get the grades that you want.
Okay, so we could have a question and answer session this next week.
No. Well, I will do a lot more than that. What is going to happen is this week and next week, so this week and next week, we're going to conclude the Linux practicals or next week. And then we do the test. We'll start with Word. We'll start with Word, then PowerPoint. But then I won't waste much time on those ones, because I know people know a lot. Is that okay?
That's okay, sir.
I assume people can go through a web question much easier than they can through Linux. Is that a fair conclusion?
Very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because of that, I will indulge more. I will indulge more on questions that pertain to Linux and then their practicality. And the words issues, I'm sure you guys can keep yourself.
But it don't be good. Why do hackers use Linux?
Linux is very penetrating. By penetration, total kuti. You can interrogate any machine. Have you heard the defense system yana Bill Gates yana Trump rowa? Do you remember that story? Yeah, you were mvuto.
Hatozviziviwo.
Yeah, takambozvinzwa, yeah.
How do the hackers do it? They need to go through a lot of servers and then go out there and do a lot of fidgetating with the passwords, sema machines, nevanhu vacho. Then manage to go to the products and then get into the system. So to do that kind of navigation, we call that pre-penetration. Is that clear, sir?
Yes, sir.
I wish I was looking at you, then I would prompt you to say, wake up. Is that clear? Do you understand them?
Yes, right, and Richard.
Dear Richard.
Kana kuti John.
Pana ari kuda kutamba nini. Unonzi Richard here?
Yes, not the Richard.
All right, I'll get your name. Don't worry. So, what I'm trying to say, Richard, is that the penetration part is the fact that you have to go through some servers and avoid being detected. Kuti ndiwapinda kubva muZimbabwe. Uda kupinda paserver yechi?
Oh, it's okay.
Inonzi chi defense force yekuAmerica. Wapanzisere.
Yeah, ndapanzisisa.
So to penetrate that, you must be very good programmer. You must be using satellite and very secure systems like Linux. So Linux is a platform inonyanzoshandisa for that because it's secure, it's excellent, it's very, very stable. It cannot fidgetate. You can actually get in and manage to delete your trail, which means your login files will not delete it. And not my trailer. No, but this side. Are we together, sir?
Yes, you are together.
Richard, why do I disappear? Also the bore Richard.
Network is by that.
The one who buys a Richard zero. Okay.
Yeah, then the young ones.
You never get the pizza.
Hey, you were mute. Hey, the other guy, let him mute. Mute, guys.
Yeah.
Yes,
pane pandamboona papana ubuntu ana unix watu tofana kudownloada maapplication ese reyayo for Linux or tinongochoose anyone.
Of course you can't install all of them. What it means is you might go to an environment where they are already using Ubuntu, or you know one baka install Slack, baka install is the Raspberry Pi, the install them small computers. Kana go to no one baka it was Red Hat. You choose and pick and choose. Say.
Okay, which are you recommending?
Well, can I check a baby? You know them kovu, you know them short, you know that. I didn't reach it.
Which are you recommending?
Hey, you cannot be forced to take. You won't choose. So it's your choice which makes your day. But as I said, Red Hat is much stable in my view and has been used much more widely than others. It doesn't mean Red Hat is the only Linux that you should use. Please. Is that clear, Anandan? Richie?
Yeah, Richard. Yeah, that's English, I say.
What is that? Okay, Muanem Vudo.
So far this scene.
I've seen her. Good. My face and Vudo or ladies. Now, couldn't my ladies are okay to sing it?
Nansimbuzibata.
Hey, and you worried kuti vanhu vazhinji havasi kuzvibata because tiri kure nakure. I could tell from what you are listening and doing kuti haasisi vavapotsa. But the problem andinayo manje, I don't have any other way of doing this except this present format. Next week, I'll be doing the practicals. Ndichiita demonstrations, tichiona sana kuti zvakamira sei. Is that okay?
Okay, sir.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
that's okay.
sir.
But please, munondibatsiravo nokufana kuverenga. Is that clear in the class?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Please,
Yeah,
zvata highlighter. First, before I start next week, I want you to ask me my practical questions. No more clarifier, no demonstrate and some machines. But look, I'm out here and you're out there. There's no way I can force you you must be honest with yourself. Ask my questions that are practical, to answer, and if you can, get hold of a Linux machine of some kind. Ndiani ane Linux machine mese mkuterera para. Who is locked to a Linux machine?
I think it's on Rakura. Can do.
Ndiani?
Battery.
Who has ever seen a Linux machine?
I don't think Panari.
I'm about to wind up.
Oh.
All right. Then
Iwe shamari chi.
yes.
Pane pandanzwa apa kuti ubuntu wato atiri yakaitwa created in South Africa ko muZimbabwe atina yede.
Very good. I'm expecting you guys. I teach normally, but nobody more senior than you guys. You guys are doing what is known as appreciation Linux. I teach one on administration, more advanced like Linux. But a bit of programming. And these are the people I expect to gather around one day and come up with a very good product. Can treat Jangata or Jangata or whatever. Or Hondo Minda or Hondo Chikwa or something. But treat it Linux here do much. You must back. I'm looking forward to such people. And I want to be a contributor to that a lot. Are we together?
Yes, Kajindi.
Yes.
You should go.
Ndika proceed.
You should go punza wewe.
Don't discourage people from asking Chamari. It's a free world.
Techitoda but use it yati padata.
But makaona thing here. Alright, I will talk about it later. Okay, let's talk about the next thing. The next thing is kune inonzi. Okay, let me. Yeah, relative addressing. Relative addressing is where we are saying we don't know the preceding subdirectories. When we say slash, we are doing an absolute addressing. But when we say relative addressing, we are just saying like reports. I'm putting a relative addressing there. Or I can put, say, slash code, code, then slash subdirectory. What is happening is that this is relative to the current directory that I'm looking at. Is that okay? So it's called relative path names. We are not doing the absolute one. In order to state the gaps that are there, we normally put this example. We don't know what's coming, but we say there's the report, there's July configuration. Then there's Dutch date, and then there's travel, there's Paris. We can actually say that relative addressing lives in gaps and it's not absolute. It doesn't address in full the names of the subdirectory. So that relative does. And then there is this press the tab key. What are we talking about? Or name completion. I'll demonstrate that next week. You guys must be able to tab and finish a command. Because a command sometimes is something. And then this I'll demonstrate, I think, let me leave this for the next week. I will demonstrate those. They are better off demonstrated on, and you guys are really in trouble. I will also demonstrate a lot about these permissions, what the group has on that file, what the owner can do on that file, and what the others can do. So there are 3 people that you should know about it: the owner, the group, and the others. So we'll talk in detail next week and probably explain the thing. Is it explained anyway? Yes. They try to explain it here. I am happy. But I'll demonstrate next week. Let me explain here, but I'll demonstrate here next week. You can see there's read permission, there's write permission, there is execute permission. Is that okay? If you look at the first 3, these are talking about what the owner can do. The next 3 are talking about what the group can do. The next 3 are talking about what the others can do. So we'll be studying those.
Means read.
And putting real permission.
Right.
For example, how do you put a permission? This is what the owner can do. The owner being the owner of the file. So, and that is represented by a U. The group is represented by a G. The others is represented by an O. If we're adding a permission, we put a plus. If we're separating a permission, we put a minus, and so on. But I don't think I like this long format. I like the second format where we use numbers. We are going to, so you guys must study all this, where we say we are going to add a permission to execute on user. We're going to subtract a permission to write on group, and so on and so on. We can actually, please, here we are saying G and O, which means G, which is group, and O, which is others, cannot write on this machine. So which means we say minus W. When we say minus W, we are saying remove the ability to write
All right.
on group and on others, which means the only person who can write is the user.
It's the admin, man.
And so on and so on. I would want to demonstrate this in practical terms, and you guys must get to understand. This equal one we will demonstrate next week. These things are best of demonstrated on a practical machine. And then you can also look at this ability to write and execute, the ability to write, to read, write, but not to execute. This is the ability to read only and not write and not execute. So we can actually convert each of the abilities to what? We can convert each of the abilities to numbers. If it is a 1, it means we are actually enabling that ability. If it is a 0, we are disabling that ability. So the ability to write is a 1, ability to read is a 1, to write is a 1, to execute is also a 1, which means we are doing all 3 here, and this is identified as a 7 in terms of binary weighting. Guys, musarasa chikoro chenyu che O level chema binary numbers. we are applying it here. So if you go and look thoroughly this, you realize that binary weighting will give you a 7. This binary weighting will give you a 6. That binary weighting will give 4, which means we can change this into this, which is a 4, 6, 7. Those are weighting, but these are binary weighting. And it is the changing of these numbers which is like, for example, if we say 600 chmod, change mode chmod, 600 644, which means we are saying the ability to read only is enabled for the group and for the others on this file called hello. Otherwise, on this one, we are saying only the owner is able to read the file. He cannot write it, which means this file he cannot write or update it. He cannot even execute because it's a 0, and here he cannot write. Now, we are going to look at this in thorough terms next week, what we mean by these permissions. And we are going to also to look at Chon being the ability to change the ownership of a file. If I say Chon file called text, I will change the owners. For example, Chon owner group to file 1, file 2, file 3, if they are there. They will, all these will be owned by a file called rich, for example, with a group called users, for example. It is a very good way of doing things. Guys, I've never taught Linux in this way. I've always taught it practically and in face-to-face. Very well, in this case, because it's given me the ability to conclude that people are not listening to me. I don't like that. I'm Richard, and I'm very, I want the head, I want the guitar, I want to play. But in this case, you guys are seated there, probably sleeping, probably not even wanting to listen to me talking. But however, I am insisting this is going to be there in the exam. You guys must get through this because it's coming, whether you like it or not. It's coming in one form or the other. So I don't like this, but it has to be done. And thanks to COVID, I'm having to do it the difficult way. I don't like this, but if you look at the exercise that is down there, please try to go through some of these exercises. They are very good. You must be able to do simple things. I am going to demonstrate all those during my practical next week. I have expounded my energy and my time on these things. Let me do, in the next 10 minutes, do a few announcements and then ask you guys to ask me questions on the lecture and on what we've done. I'm Richie. I enjoyed this. Anyway, before I say what I have to say is, guys, this is the norm now. We have to learn online and we have to learn through things. So what I have to introduce is some videos or some nuggets that can demonstrate exactly what happens in each command, and then have you guys enjoy. Before I conclude, can I entertain questions, objection?
Yeah, say ndine mubvunzo.
Yes, boss.
Pama-binary numbers pane here a formula yatokwanisa kuconverta a number to a binary number.
Yes, there is. Kana uchiri kureuka ma-binary numbers
zvebase 2 unokwanisa chinja zvebase 2
yokutanga iri pa 2 iri pa2 to the power 0 handi yokutanga iyi inenge iri 2 to the power 0 handi
Yeah.
and yechipiri inenge iri 2 to the power 1 and then yechitatu
2 to the power 2.
2 to the power 2 so that's why it's 4
Yeah.
unoona kuti it's 4 kana iri 2 to the power 2
Yeah.
4 so that 4 plus 2 plus 1 that 7 wapanzisa here first
Yeah, ndapanzisa.
wapanzisa
Yeah.
yeah good
Yes, ndapanzisa.
thank you anybody mumwe mubvunzo
Exam itonyera online.
ndichakuudzai mamodalities acho I stand very corrected inini hangu it's out of me ndakaudzai kuti I'm teaching these things without my resources a time and my machine so ndichanyorwa sei ndakutongorega kuti mabosses angu andicorrected because I haven't taught this one I'm doing it for the first time so ndichaunza kuti vari kuita sei wazinzeri
Okay, sir.
pane mwana nebvunzo here hatitapedza toda kuita maannouncement pane nemubvunzo here
No, say.
Zvinenge zvaita se.
zvinge zvaita ndi
zvafamba hangatenderere mberi
toenda mberi
Handi.
next week tichaita mademonstrations
Saka panodiwa chi?
practical haditi
Panodiwa chi? Panodiwa chi?
vaida kuti muloge in palinux machine can you promise you
Tofana
that
kudownload my tofana download my application or no shandisa Windows.
haisiri application it's an operating system inotodzima windows yotomata yotonyora with linux it's a totally rebirth of the system don't take it literally kuti utazongoinstalla software no unotodelita chichirimo icho wotoisa something else or you do what is known as dual booting imwe yacho boota on a different environment wapanzisa
Yeah, right.
mapanzisisa here
Yeah, ndapanzwa.
mambanza aneti very good uyu anonzi aninyi root sabata sabeta ndakukudzimai ndakukupai manegative mamarks ipapa vanhu vasina responde I don't like them sabeta
Arara.
ara idiwe wacho
Aiwa.
iwe unonzani
Jeffin.
Kana
Yes, network iri
kana
kunetsa
kuti John.
kati.
sabeta wanga wakakotsira iwe ake Richard Piri
Ana bude.
Yes, sir.
uri right
Apira chipo se.
gomo taona she ariko here gono
yes ndiripo foni yanga ngodzima
nonyepa ndiyo munhu anodzi anonyepa manje all right guys you know what I will do next week
Aiwa.
I will be wanting to know kuti ndianani vauya, I will go through the register of the system and try to have some kind of evaluation kuti ninginaningi vauya, ninginaningi havana kuuya, ninginaningi vane ma-attendance marks vanopiwa, vananingi havapiwi. Remember, I must come up with the total mark, coursework mark, and zvimwe zvacho ndima-attendance yanenge tichida. Vanhu vanouya kuchikoro so ndovafarira, like Sabata naRichi taonashe
ini ndiripo wani
Elinio.
Neni.
murukanga munari kurekodha vanava ndiye tinasho
tinashani
network yangu yakubhaiza sei
anati tinashani tinashe ndikuda vhidhiyo rangu karo rokuti tanga tichiita sei
vhidhiyo riripo
ririko ndikuita shamari. At the end of this unoritumira hati munoiziva email yangu ndakakunyorera paboard mushana
handina kuikopa hangu
mbana unofeira mbana why usingakukopa sidmail.richard@gmail.com.
alright ndaweza dzokorai futi
aiwa it's only for tinasha ari I'm not for everybody.
Say. Okay, say.
Good guys. Before I leave, can I make an important announcement?
Yes.
Makawana timetable here.
Echi.
Yeah, you could your exam.
Atina say.
Hands are kutanga musi
23.
But imimwe hanzi mukunyora
15.
hanzi imimwe muri kuya muna macha ndi. Guys. Imimwe kuya muna macha. Kana muchiuya muna machi muchimizi in between apa tichazotoba time toita zvimwe practicals toitawo zvima test ndorecorda coursework marks nezviro zvakawanda. So I'm planning kuti after next week we must have a practical test or online test no one post what is known as the coursework mark. So you must attend.
Say online test by LMS.
Tinyora bai.
And this hands paper Google Scholar. I am here to find out kuti vamwe vakaita chi.
Haiti Linux izvo.
No, my questions anenge ri Linux but uchikwanisa kwa answer zviri using better. Anonzi machi multiple choice.
Alright. Akana ni multiple choice.
Anonzi multiple choice unomaziva here better. Good. We're going to use those.
Alright.
Choice structured questions zvinhu zvakadaro kuita kuti tikwanise kumaka, otherwise 700 of you I'll go bananas ndikaita dzichine mfanano hanzi itaichi no assignment yamunokopana
unotaura chekumaka
Kupana kubise.
Tokopana face.
Unokandirana pa WhatsApp baba. Nepa no plans bachi social media. pafacebook
Vatidaro se.
Nabeta anozivana naachford anozivana napenelompe moyana unozivana mese so munongokanzana. I won't do that. I want some true chondiratidza the real performance dzevanhu.
mungatipawo mastrike emakwezini acho tisati tatanga kunyora.
Alright, no, ndichati genga rangu riri kutumire masamples angu mokuti ndokuudzai futi kuti I expect you to do this within 30 minutes or an hour. Okay. What chirichi? What chiri? Unofeira richi? Usaita rombo rakadaro. Make sure that waenda pane good network. Better. Auratidze. Achford. I will take into consideration the fact that his network is poor. So I will add a few hours, a few minutes.
takambozvitraya mamwe maexam zvikaramba sei.
Unfortunately, distance. Why? What is it? Yes. Yes. Distance. Murubi. Yes, sir. What I'm saying is I'll send the test data reservoir kuti vakanyora sei. But I think what I will do is ndichakuwedza a few minutes knowing that my network challenges are equal to sure.
Hamumbotama mabvunzo anonzi engineer zvirashe anokuudzai.
All right. Ndichaedza kutaura nemasenya.
LMS haiti.
Oh, inoita
bvunzai engineer zvirashe.
muri kuti LMS inoita sei?
Yakataiwa minoka hobo ichitamba.
Aitomboitira takatombotraya programming but hapana.
Wakaiona uchite wakati which test?
Akanyora exam yeprogramming.
Programming takataya kakawanda.
Okay, what were the challenges?
Login yetu ni. Then
it is slow.
To answer yaitoramba ndani.
So you're saying Google School iri scholar iri nane.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, I will look at those. Thank you so much, guys, for coming. I will try to keep your names. Normally, when I don't participate on this class, I will keep them above the 50% mark.
Don't forget me.
Thank you, sir.
Rudo.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Rudo send a message.
Nakachitaura one say.
Oh, sorry, young man. You're right.
Can we exit the meeting?
Moyana, Nash, are you Nash. nasha chikutaura vamwe vacho mazumbe chaiwo muri kutoshandisa mamachines asiri enyu.
chikoro chinotiko
hatidi vanhu vasina mamachines, toda vanhu vari practical. Thank you so much guys for I'm hoping that next week I'll be more organized in terms of starting time. But I think it's almost the same time. And it is.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay, let's end this class and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Munditsvage
Thank
amwese
you.
munditsvage munditsvage vanhu munditsvage
tinashe ndiri kuda thing yangu angatumire tinashe ndiri kuda
akuda
andoda video.
all right say
All right, thank you so much. Muleti uchajai. Right, bye bye.